There are basically 5 big forces through history that drive everything. First, there's the money, credit, debt, economic cycle, in which there's a building up of debt in a cyclical way that becomes too large, and we're going to have problems.
Now, Ed, before we go any further, you need to understand who is sounding this alarm, because this isn't a Twitter thread, this isn't a Reddit post, and this is not some crypto influencer trying to sell you a course. The man we're talking about is Ray Dalio, the founder of Bridgewater Associates, the largest hedge fund on the planet, managing over $150 billion in assets. But here's what makes Dalio different from every other billionaire investor you've heard of. He doesn't just trade markets, he studies them, the way a scientist studies nature. In his book, Principles for Dealing with the Changing World Order, Dalio spent years analyzing over 500 years of economic data, studying the rise and fall of the Dutch Empire, the British Empire, and now the American Empire. And what he found wasn't just fascinating, it was a pattern. A repeating cycle that every great empire follows, without exception. He calls himself a financial historian, not just an investor. Because to understand where we're going, you first have to understand where we've been. And right now, according to Dalio, America is in the final stage of that cycle. Now here's where it gets dangerous. Dalio isn't just saying America is slowing down. He isn't just talking about inflation. And he isn't just warning about a recession. He's saying something far more serious. He believes America is sitting on the edge of a financial heart attack. But before we dissect the anatomy of this crisis, if you value data-driven macro analysis over market hype, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon. We're rebuilding Finance for Earn to be your guide through this 2026 transition. Now, let's look at the cycle Dalio says is unavoidable. Think about what a heart attack actually is. It's not a headache. It's not a fever you sleep off. A heart attack means the entire system, the pump that keeps everything alive, is breaking down at once. That's exactly the language Dalio is using about the American economy right now. And the number he keeps pointing to? 2026. But to understand why 2026 matters, you have to understand something most financial news channels will never tell you. We are not in an ordinary economic downturn. We are not in a typical recession cycle. What Dalio is describing is the end of a 100-year debt cycle, a once-in-a-lifetime reset that the last generation never had to face, that your parents never had to face, that nobody alive today has ever seen before. The last time something like this happened, the global monetary order was completely restructured. New powers rose, old empires fell, entire currencies were wiped out overnight. And the people who saw it coming? They didn't just survive, they built generational wealth from the wreckage. Now Dalio is not a doomsday preacher, or he's not standing on a street corner with a sign. This is a man who predicted the 2008 financial crisis before it happened, a man whose fund made money while the rest of Wall Street was collapsing. So when he says, and I'm going to be very direct here, the world's smartest money is listening. And the question you need to ask yourself right now is simple. Are you listening? Because in the next part of this video, we are going to break down the 3 red alerts Dalio has identified, the 3 signals that tell us exactly how close we are to that reset. And trust me, at least one of them is already happening right now, as you watch this. Every great empire in history believed it would last forever. The Dutch thought so. The British thought so. And for the last 80 years, America thought so too. But Ray Dalio studied 500 years of data and found something that should make every single person watching this stop and pay attention. Every empire, without exception, follows the same 7 stages, the same pattern, the same arc. Rise, peak, decline, reset. And once you see this pattern, you cannot unsee it. It starts with a new power taking the throne. After World War II, the world was broken. Europe was in ruins, and into that vacuum stepped one nation, the United States of America. In 1944, through the Bretton Woods Agreement, America did something no empire had done before. It made the US dollar the world's reserve currency. Every country, every transaction, every barrel of oil, every trade deal settled in dollars. The dollar wasn't just money anymore. It was power. And every nation on earth accepted it. That was stage one. America didn't just win the war, it rewrote the rules of the entire global financial system in its own favor. With the war over and the dollar crowned king, the building began. Factories, highways, innovation, infrastructure. The American middle class exploded. The economy roared. And yes, America was borrowing to fund all of this. But here's the key distinction Dalio makes. This was good debt, productive debt. They weren't borrowing to consume, they were borrowing to build. Think of it like taking out a loan to start a business versus taking out a loan to go on holiday. One creates value, one destroys it. America in this era was building, and the returns on that investment were extraordinary. This was the golden era, and it felt like it would never end. But growth, Dalio warns, is addictive. When things are going well, human nature kicks in. Governments borrow more, corporations leverage up, individuals stretch further than they should. And somewhere along the way, the borrowing stopped being productive. It became speculative. Now, instead of building factories, they were inflating asset prices. Instead of investing in infrastructure, they were engineering financial products nobody fully understood. And the result? Inflation crept up. The rich got astronomically richer. And the middle class, the very people who built this empire, started getting left behind. 50 years ago, buying a home was a life goal you could actually achieve. Today, for most people, it feels impossible. That's not an accident. That's what happens when a wealth gap grows unchecked for decades. The bubble was forming, and bubbles always burst. 2008. Lehman Brothers collapsed overnight. Banks that had existed for over a century, gone. Millions of jobs vanished. Families lost homes they had spent decades paying for. The system didn't just wobble, it cracked. And here's what most people missed about 2008. It wasn't a one-off event. It wasn't bad luck. It was the inevitable consequence of stage 3. When you build a financial system on speculative debt, on leverage stacked on leverage, all it takes is one crack in the foundation. And the whole thing comes down. But instead of letting the system reset, governments made a choice that would echo all the way to 2026. They decided to print their way out. 2008, trillions printed. 2020, COVID hits. The entire global economy shuts down overnight, and governments around the world did the only thing they knew how to do. They fired up the printers again. Now here's the analogy Dalio uses that I want you to really sit with. Imagine a bucket with a hole in the bottom. Instead of fixing the hole, you just keep pouring more water in. For a while, the bucket looks full. Everything seems fine. But the hole is still there. And eventually, the water runs out faster than you can pour. That's exactly what money printing does to an economy. In the short term, crisis averted, system saved, markets recover, people go back to brunch. But the long-term cost? The currency gets diluted. Every dollar already in existence becomes worth slightly less. Inflation rises. And the people who feel it hardest? Not the billionaires, not the hedge funds. The ordinary person, paying more for groceries, more for rent, more for everything, while their salary stays exactly the same. And when people start feeling that squeeze, really feeling it, something shifts. People get angry. And when people get angry at a system they believe is rigged against them, they don't just change their spending habits, they change their politics. You start to see it everywhere. Left versus right, rich versus poor, us versus them. Social media pours gasoline on every divide. Trust in institutions collapses. Nobody believes the government. Nobody believes the media. Nobody believes each other. Sound familiar? Dalio calls this stage 6. And it's not just a social problem, it's an economic warning sign. Because a nation divided against itself cannot defend itself, cannot compete, and cannot innovate at the level it needs to. And when a nation weakens from the inside, the outside world notices. China notices. Russia notices. Every rival power on the global stage is watching and waiting. And then, the final stage. The monetary order restructures. Currencies fall. New powers rise from the wreckage of the old. New financial systems replace the ones that failed. This is exactly how the British Empire gave way to America. The Dutch before that. The Romans before them. Dalio says this full cycle takes between 50 and 150 years to complete. And according to his data, America's cycle, it started in 1944. Do the math. Now, Dalio is not saying collapse is guaranteed. He's careful about that. He points out that just like a person can extend their life through discipline, diet, exercise, better habits, a nation can extend its cycle too. Control the debt, manage inflation, stay united. But right now, 3 warning signals are flashing red, 3 specific alerts that tell us the window for course correction is closing fast. Everything we just walked through, the 7 stages, the debt cycles, the money printing, that was history. This next part? This is right now. Dalio and his team at Bridgewater have identified 3 specific signals, 3 red alerts, that tell us the reset isn't just a theory anymore. It's already in motion. Let's go through them one by one. Alert number 1. And I want you to pay very close attention here because this one is already affecting your wallet right now, whether you realize it or not. America imports over $600 billion worth of goods from China every single year. Electronics, clothing, furniture, components, the products that fill Amazon warehouses, retail shelves, and family homes across the country. Now, the current administration has placed heavy tariffs on Chinese imports. And on the surface, that sounds like strong economic policy, protecting American jobs, pushing back against China. But here's what the headlines aren't telling you. Tariffs don't hurt China. Not directly, not immediately. Tariffs are a tax. And that tax gets passed straight down the chain. From the manufacturer, to the importer, to the retailer. And ultimately, to you, the consumer standing at the checkout. Companies don't absorb these costs. They never do. No, they pass them on. And because the scale of this import relationship is so enormous, $600 billion, the ripple effect across the entire consumer economy is massive. Dalio's team calls this a delayed inflation time bomb. The fuse was lit the moment those tariffs went into effect. The explosion? Bridgewater's models point to 2026 as the year those price increases fully detonate across the consumer market. Think about what that means practically. Every Amazon order, every grocery run, every appliance you need to replace, every gadget your kid is asking for. A hidden tax, quietly making everything cost more while wages struggle to keep pace. That's red alert number 1. Alert number 2 is the one that scares institutional investors the most. Because unlike inflation, that which you can feel, this one is almost completely invisible to the average person. Dalio calls it the silent crash. For decades, the United States has been the world's safest investment destination. Foreign governments, sovereign wealth funds, institutional investors, they all park their money in US assets. US stocks, US Treasury bonds, US real estate. Why? Because the dollar was king, because America was stable, because there was simply no better place on earth to store and grow wealth. Look at this chart from the Bridgewater report. Foreign inflows into US assets have been declining since 2022. The buyers are pulling back. Demand is drying up. And when demand dries up, prices follow. US stocks, vulnerable. US Treasury bonds, no vulnerable. US real estate, vulnerable. Now, individually, each of these trends is concerning, but together, at the same time, that is the anatomy of a silent crash. It doesn't happen overnight. There's no single dramatic moment you can point to on the news. It's a slow bleed, a gradual loss of confidence, a quiet exit by the world's biggest money. And by the time most people notice it, the damage is already done. The investor who saw it coming 3 years earlier, they repositioned, they protected themselves, they were ready. The investor who was still waiting for the headline, they weren't. That's red alert number 2. And now, alert number 3. The one that Dalio himself says could either save America or seal its fate. Ray Dalio describes artificial intelligence as the new nuclear weapon of the global economy. Think about what nuclear capability meant in the 20th century. The nation that had it held ultimate leverage. The nation that fell behind lived under a permanent threat. AI is that, but for economics, for productivity, for military power, for geopolitical dominance. Consider this: the internet, the technology that completely transformed human civilization, took 30 years to reach 1 billion users. Artificial intelligence, 3 years. The speed of this technology's penetration into every sector of the global economy is unlike anything in human history. Right now, the United States leads this race. Silicon Valley, OpenAI, Google DeepMind, American innovation is at the frontier. But the race is not over, not even close. China has declared AI a national strategic priority, backed by state funding at a scale most Western companies cannot match. The UAE is investing billions through sovereign wealth into becoming a global AI hub. The UK, South Korea, Canada, every major economy understands what is at stake. And Dalio's warning is precise. If America maintains its AI lead, there is a path through this reset. A painful path, but a survivable one. But if America loses that lead, then the dollar's dominance has no technological foundation left to stand on. The foreign capital exodus we talked about in Alert 2 accelerates. The inflation spiral from Alert 1 has no productivity miracle to counter it. And the reset, according to Dalio, becomes not just likely. It becomes unstoppable. 3 alerts, 1 timeline. Tariff-driven inflation detonating by 2026. Foreign capital quietly walking out the door. And an AI race where second place for the first time in modern history might mean economic irrelevance. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, okay, this is serious, this is real, but what do I do with this information? How does someone like me, not a hedge fund manager, and I'm not a billionaire, actually prepare for something this big? Here's the thing about every major financial reset in history. It didn't destroy everyone. The 1929 crash created millionaires. The 2008 collapse minted a new generation of wealthy investors who bought assets at the bottom while everyone else was panicking. The reset doesn't discriminate between the rich and the poor. It discriminates between the prepared and the unprepared. And Ray Dalio's message, above everything else, is not panic, it's prepare. So let's talk about exactly how to do that. Dalio's #1 survival principle is something every serious investor already knows, but very few actually practice. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. But here's where most people get it wrong. They think diversification means owning 5 different stocks instead of 1, or splitting money between 2 funds. That is not diversification. That is just concentration with extra steps. True diversification, the kind Dalio's own portfolio is built on, means spreading across fundamentally different asset classes, assets that don't move together, assets that protect each other. Think of it like a plate of food. A well-balanced meal doesn't have 5 different types of rice. It has rice, protein, vegetables, something fermented, something sweet. Each element serves a different nutritional purpose. Together, they give your body everything it needs. Your portfolio works exactly the same way. Domestic stocks, your foundation. Growth exposure to the economy you live in and understand best. Global stocks, because when one market struggles, another may thrive. Europe, Asia, emerging markets. Don't limit your growth to one geography. Bonds, your shock absorber. When equity markets fall, quality bonds typically hold or rise. They stabilize the plate. Gold, and this one matters especially right now. In every single empire transition Dalio studied, gold held its value. When currencies were debased, when systems reset, when paper money lost its meaning, gold remained. Right now, gold is hitting record highs. That is not a coincidence. That is the world's smartest money sending a signal. Real estate. If direct property ownership isn't accessible, REITs, real estate investment trusts, give you exposure to real assets without needing to buy an entire building. And finally, for those with a higher risk appetite, crypto, specifically Bitcoin. And we'll talk about exactly why Bitcoin is relevant to the 2026 reset in just a moment. This is what Dalio calls true financial immunity. Not immunity from the storm, but immunity from being wiped out by it. Because when one asset class takes a hit, another absorbs the blow. The plate stays balanced. Your financial life stays intact. Now, here's where the story takes its most dramatic turn. And I want to be very clear. This is not speculation. And this is a policy proposal being actively discussed at the highest levels of the United States government. The current administration is exploring the idea of backing the US dollar with hard assets, specifically gold and Bitcoin, to manage and potentially restructure America's $37 trillion debt. $37 trillion? To put that in perspective, if you spent $1 million every single day, it would take you over 100,000 years to spend $37 trillion. That is the hole America is sitting in. And the proposal on the table is essentially this. Instead of printing more dollars to service that debt, back the currency with something that cannot be printed. Something finite. Add something that holds value independent of any government's decision. Gold has played that role for thousands of years. Bitcoin, by design, has a hard cap of 21 million coins. It cannot be inflated. It cannot be printed. It is mathematically scarce in a way that no fiat currency ever has been. Now, will this actually happen? Nobody knows. Not Dalio, not Wall Street, not Washington. But here's what is certain. The mere conversation about backing the dollar with gold or Bitcoin tells you everything you need to know about how serious the debt problem actually is. When governments start talking about restructuring the monetary foundation, that is not a drill. That is stage 7 in real time. And for the prepared investor, this is not a crisis. This is a signal. A signal to hold some gold. A signal to understand what Bitcoin actually represents in a world where fiat currency is under pressure. Not to go all in, not to abandon everything else, but to make sure your financial Thali has a seat at the table for the asset class that thrives when governments lose control of their own money. History has never once rewarded the person who buried their head in the sand and hoped the storm would pass. But it has, repeatedly, rewarded the person who looked at the data, understood the pattern, and positioned themselves before the crowd caught on. You now have the data. You now understand the pattern. The question is, what are you going to do with it? We started this video with a warning from one of the most respected financial minds on the planet. A man who has spent decades studying the rise and fall of empires, who has poured over 500 years of data, who predicted 2008 before it happened. And his warning is this. We are not at the beginning of this cycle. We are not in the middle. We are at the end. But here is what that timeline also shows us. Every time an empire declined, individuals still built wealth, families still protected what they had. Prepared people didn't just survive the reset. They used it. The Dutch decline gave rise to British prosperity. The British decline gave rise to American dominance. Every ending in history has been someone else's beginning. So let me leave you with this. Empires are built by systems, but they are survived by individuals. Governments will make their decisions. Central banks will print what they print. The politicians will fight the fights they're going to fight. You cannot control any of that. But you can control your portfolio. You can control your financial education. You can control whether you are the person who saw this coming or the person who wished they had. History tells us, with absolute consistency, that while empires fall, prepared individuals rise. While empires fall, prepared individuals rise. Now, I want to hear from you. Because we've talked about two assets today that could play a very significant role in how this reset plays out. Gold, the 5,000-year store of value that has outlasted every empire, every currency, and every financial crisis in recorded history. And Bitcoin, the digital, the mathematically scarce alternative that a growing number of the world's most sophisticated investors are treating as gold for the 21st century. So here's my question for you. And I genuinely want to know your answer. Which asset are you using to protect yourself against the 2026 reset? Gold or crypto? Drop your answer in the comments right now, because the conversation in that comment section is going to be just as valuable as this video. And if this video gave you clarity, if it gave you even one insight that changes how you think about your financial future, do one thing for me. Share it with one person, a friend, a family member, a colleague. Because the difference between financial security and financial regret in the years ahead may simply come down to whether someone gave them the information in time. Be that person for someone today. This has been Finance for Earn. I'll see you in the next one.